The crash of a glass split the air like a gunshot. Every head in the iron lantern turned toward the sound. Amber liquid spread across the scarred counter, dripping over the edge onto the boots of the man who'd caused it. Cole Ramirez, former security contractor turned local legend, grinned down at the woman he'd just drenched. "Didn't see you there, sweetheart," he said, voice thick with whiskey. "Maybe you're too small to notice." The woman didn't move. She sat still, her fingers wrapped around a half-empty cup of coffee, her jacket damp, but her eyes steady. Her name was Mara Quinn, 37, quiet, unassuming. She'd walked into this rural Texas bar after finishing a 12-hour shift at a warehouse medical bay, hoping only for silence. Now, 50 strangers watched her like a show. Cole leaned in, breath sharp with bourbon.
"This place is for people who've earned their scars," he said, "not tourists playing dress-up." His friends snorted behind him. Phones came out, screens glowed. Someone whispered, "This is gonna go viral." Mara dabbed the stain with a napkin, motion slow, deliberate. The crowd mistook her calm for weakness. Cole placed a heavy hand on her shoulder. That was the mistake. She moved once. A blur, too fast to track. The next breath, Cole was face down on the bar, his arm pinned behind him, wrist twisted at an impossible angle. Silence crashed down like a curtain. Even the jukebox froze mid-chorus. No one saw her move. No one understood how she'd done it. At a corner table, Elias Ward, a grizzled trucker with a faded tattoo of a sword on his forearm, set his beer down and whispered, "That's not a bar trick." Cole cursed, trying to push up, but she released him gently, as if setting down something fragile. She returned to her seat, picked up her cup, sipped. Not a word. The bartender, Reggie, a Marine vet with scars across his knuckles, stared at her. "What was that?" he murmured. Mara didn't answer. Her eyes drifted toward the door, calculating exits, light angles, mirrors. Habits born in places no one here had seen. Cole stood, face burning, pride shredded. "Lucky move," he growled. "Try me again." But his voice wavered. His hand shook. His friend Tanya Brooks, a National Guard sergeant, stepped forward. "You just attacked a decorated veteran," she snapped. "You think that's smart?" Mara didn't reply. She only folded the damp napkin and placed it neatly beside her cup. Her silence pressed heavier than words. Reggie poured her a new coffee. "On the house," he said. His eyes narrowed, catching something in her movements. Too precise, too practiced. The kind you only see in people who've done things they can't talk about. From a corner booth, an older man with silver hair watched quietly. His name was Dr. Samuel Green, local history professor. But once, years ago, he'd trained field medics for conflicts never listed on any record. He saw the way Mara shifted her weight, the quiet balance, the economy of motion. Not a nurse, not just a worker. Something else. The tension built again when Cole stepped closer, trying to reclaim what was left of his pride. "You think you're tough?" he spat. "Bet you've never seen real combat." He expected fear. He got silence. Mara's gaze lifted, met his. Calm, unblinking. In it, he saw something cold and endless, something that had already seen too much. "You don't want this fight," she said softly. Her voice carried, low and steady, over the hum of cameras still recording. "You don't want to find out what I had to survive." For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then the door opened. A gust of winter air swept in. A man in plain clothes stepped through, tall, wiry, eyes scanning like radar. Captain Rowan Hale, recently retired intelligence officer, froze when he saw Mara. It was like seeing a ghost. He took a step closer. "Mara Quinn?" Her hand tightened around her cup. The quiet tremor of recognition passed between them, unseen by the crowd but heavy as gravity. "Didn't expect to find you here." Hale said carefully. Not after what happened in... Her sharp glance stopped him. A warning. Not here. Not now. Cole sneered. Oh, great. Another one of your old friends? He moved again. This time, Hale's voice cut through like a blade. Back off, soldier. It wasn't a request. Cole hesitated, the authority in Hale's tone triggering old instincts. The crowd murmured. Cameras kept rolling. Mara rose, slow, controlled. Every eye tracked her. She set down her cup. Her jacket clung wet against her frame. You wanted to know if I've seen combat, she said, looking at Cole. I have. But the hardest battles aren't the ones you fight with guns. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from memory. Then she walked past him, toward the door, each step measured, like a soldier leaving a battlefield. Hale followed, stopping at the threshold. To the room, he said, You'll want to forget what you saw tonight. Then he stepped into the cold, leaving the crowd staring, unsure what they'd witnessed. Inside, silence hung like fog. Reggie finally exhaled. Who the hell is she? Elias whispered. Someone who's done things we'll never understand. Outside, in the dark parking lot, Hale caught up to her. You can't keep hiding, he said. They're asking questions again. Mara's breath misted in the cold. I buried that life. Some things don't stay buried. Her jaw clenched. A flicker of old pain crossed her face. Somewhere deep in her pocket, a phone buzzed, an encrypted tone only a few in the world recognized. She didn't answer. Not yet. Above them, a plane crossed the sky, lights blinking like a distant heartbeat. Mara's eyes followed it, her reflection pale in the window of her car. She thought of the years she'd tried to live quietly, of the names she'd left behind. The phone buzzed again, and this time she reached for it. The screen glowed with a single message. We found him. Her breath caught. The past she'd buried just clawed its way back. She closed her eyes. The hum of the bar behind her faded into nothing. The war she thought was over had just found her again. The night wind scraped against the parking lot, whispering through rusted fences and flickering lamps. Mara stood motionless beside her old sedan, the glow of her phone cutting through the dark. We found him. 3 words. Cold, precise, weighted like a trigger pull. Hale stepped closer, eyes narrowing. Who sent it? Mara locked the screen. Doesn't matter, she said. But her voice betrayed the fracture, the tremor of something she'd buried long ago. A decade of silence pressed in on her. Years spent stitching wounds in quiet rooms, tending to strangers who never asked about the scars on her own skin. Now the past had broken through. Hale reached into his coat, pulled out a crumpled envelope. I was told to give you this, in case they reached out again. Mara hesitated before taking it. The paper was thick, official, but unmarked. Inside, a photograph, grainy, captured from a satellite feed. A boy, maybe 19, standing beside a bombed-out school, chalk dust on his hands. Underneath, a single name written in block letters, Asim. The sound of it cracked something open inside her. She remembered a desert sky turned red with fire, a small boy clutching her sleeve, whispering, Don't let go. She hadn't. Not then. But she'd left him behind when the mission collapsed, and the world believed she died with her team. Where is he? She asked. Eastern Province, Hale said. Captured 3 days ago. They're planning to make an example out of him. Broadcast execution. Mara's jaw tightened. They're baiting me. They don't know you're alive. Her eyes lifted from the photo. They will. A car engine revved somewhere in the distance. Headlights swept across the cracked asphalt, then vanished down the highway.
The quiet after felt heavier. "You don't have to do this," Hale said softly. "Yes, I do." Her tone was final, iron behind the calm. He studied her face, the faint scar along her jaw, the steady gaze of someone who'd made peace with ghosts. "Then you'll need help." "No," she said. "No one else dies for me." Hale's voice sharpened. "This isn't about you anymore. You trained him. He built that school because of what you taught him." She closed her eyes. The memory surged, a young boy standing amid rubble, promising to rebuild what war had broken. Asim's voice echoed in her mind. "If you survive, I'll make something good from it." Now he was a hostage in the same valley where her team had fallen. Fate circling back like a hawk. Mara slid the photo into her jacket. "When do they plan the execution?" 72 hours. Too soon. Too far. Too many walls between her and him. She exhaled, steadying the storm inside. "I'll need gear, access, transport." Hale nodded. "There's a network still loyal. They remember what you did. I can make calls." "Keep it off the books." "It always is." A sudden gust swept through the lot, carrying the smell of rain and gasoline. Mara looked toward the horizon, the neon lights of the bar behind her fading into shadow. The quiet life she'd built, shifts, patience, nameless kindness, felt like smoke slipping through her fingers. "You'll vanish again after this?" Hale asked. She didn't answer. They drove in silence down an empty road, the highway stretching ahead like a scar through the night. Streetlights flickered over her face, half light, half shadow, a portrait of someone caught between two lives. At a roadside motel, Hale pulled over. "Safe house," he said. "For now." Inside, the air smelled of dust and stale coffee. A single lamp cast weak light across peeling wallpaper. Mara spread the photo on the table, beside a folded map. Her hands moved automatically, marking routes, estimating terrain, counting hours like heartbeats. Hale watched, saying nothing. The rhythm of an old soldier returning to war. When she finally stopped, her eyes were distant. "I thought walking away was survival," she said quietly. "It was," Hale replied. She shook her head. "No, it was surrender." A silence settled between them, heavy, human, filled with the weight of choices made long ago. Then, a knock. Soft. Measured. 3 taps. Hale's hand went to his sidearm. Mara tilted her head, listening. The pattern repeated, a code only a handful would know. She opened the door. A woman stood outside, tall, black hair in a braid, eyes sharp as glass. Leona Tran. Once an infiltrator, now a ghost like her. Leona gave a faint smile. "Heard you were alive. Didn't believe it till now." Mara stepped aside. Leona dropped a duffel on the floor. Weapons, comms, a satellite phone. "You're not doing this alone," she said. Mara didn't argue. Not this time. Hale unfolded a satellite image across the bedspread. "The compound's fortified, dozens of guards. They expect a frontal strike." "Then we give them something else," Mara said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with resolve. "They want the ghost from the past. We'll show them what ghosts can do." Leona smirked. Still poetic, even when planning suicide. "Not suicide," Mara said. "Redemption." The plan formed in the silence that followed, half whispered, half instinct. A return to the valley that had taken everything from her. This time, she wouldn't lose anyone. Outside, thunder rolled across the plains, a storm building over the desert. Mara stood by the window, watching lightning split the clouds.
Her reflection stared back, older, scarred, unbroken. Behind her, Hale spoke softly. 3 days. Are you sure you're ready to be Vesper again? The name hung in the air, the one she'd sworn never to hear again. She turned. I was never anything else. The thunder cracked like an answer. Rain began to fall, tapping against the glass like distant gunfire. And in the rhythmic beat of the storm, the ghosts stirred awake. The rain didn't stop through the night. By dawn, the motel roof dripped steady, each drop ticking like a countdown. Mara hadn't slept. She sat cross-legged on the floor, maps spread around her, eyes scanning every contour of the valley she once swore never to see again. Leona poured stale coffee into paper cups. Still the same, she said softly. You map the world before you move through it. Mara didn't look up. Maps are honest. People aren't. Hale emerged from the adjoining room, a phone pressed to his ear. They're in, he said. Old contacts, off-grid operators. They heard your name. He paused. They didn't believe it at first. Mara's hands stilled. What name did you use? The only one they'll follow, Hale said quietly. Vesper. The word hung in the air. It was more than a name. It was a ghost story whispered in war zones. The operator who vanished after saving 73 lives. The one who died, but didn't. Leona crouched beside her. You ready to wear it again? Mara met her gaze. I never took it off. I just tried to forget it fit. They packed fast, gear stripped to essentials. No insignia, no names. Only the silence of those who'd walked through fire and learned not to scream. By noon, they reached a rusted hangar on the edge of an abandoned airstrip. Inside, 4 figures waited, shadows from different wars. Kieran Holt, ex-sniper, eyes pale as frost, face unreadable. Nadia Ruiz, demolition expert, hair shorn close, scars tracing her temple. Jonas Park, tech and drone operator, tapping a tablet even as he nodded hello. And Dax Miller, medic, quiet, built like a wall, gaze heavy with understanding. No one spoke at first. The silence carried more truth than greetings. They had all lost something that could not be replaced. And now they were here because of her. Kieran broke the stillness. Didn't think I'd hear that call sign again. You shouldn't have, Mara said. Then why now? She placed the photo of Asim on the table. He's alive. They're using him to draw me out. Nadia leaned closer. You going to give them what they want? I'm going to give them what they don't expect. Leona spread out the map. Fortified compound, 3 checkpoints, high ground on 3 sides. They've turned the valley into a cage. Jonas projected satellite feeds from his drone. Thermal shows 30-plus hostiles, armed. They're prepping cameras, generators, public execution setup. The room tensed. A plan formed like storm clouds, piece by piece, inevitable. Hale watched her from the corner. You know what this means, he said quietly. If you go back, the world sees you again. The lie dies. Vesper lives. Mara met his eyes. Let it. For a moment, the weight of it pressed down. Years of hiding, the cost of silence, the lives she'd tried to build from broken pieces. Now, all of it converged into this. Nadia snapped a magazine into her rifle. Then we stopped talking. They moved like clockwork. Weapons checked, routes memorized. No speeches, no promises. But beneath the silence, emotion rippled, a mix of fear, loyalty, and something else. Respect earned, not asked. Mara stood apart, staring at the old insignia burned into a wall, a faded emblem from a unit long erased from record. Her fingertips brushed the paint. A fragment of who she'd been. A whisper from the dead. Leona joined her. "You think redemption's waiting there?" Mara shook her head. "Not redemption. Closure." Outside, engines roared to life. The convoy rolled toward the horizon, tires kicking up red dust beneath the wide Texas sky. Hours later, in a safe house near the border, they gathered around a flickering light. The plan unfolded, silent, surgical. Jonas would disrupt their comms. Nadia would plant charges along the East Ridge. Leona and Kieran would cover Overwatch. Mara would go in, alone. The others protested, but she stopped them with a glance. "I started this," she said. "I finish it." Kieran's voice was low. "You walk in there, you might not walk out. Then I'll make sure the boy does." The room went still again. Every person there had seen death. But this was something different. A mission built not on orders, but on choice. Dax finally spoke. "You don't have to carry it all." Mara looked at him. "I do. That's why I'm still here." A long silence. Then Kieran reached into his pocket, pulled out a small coin, worn, etched with faded symbols. He placed it in her hand. "From the ones we lost," he said. "Bring it back." The metal was cold, but it burned in her palm. Outside, night fell fast. The storm had passed, leaving the air heavy with the scent of wet earth. They loaded their gear into a black transport van, engines muted. As they pulled away, Mara glanced at her reflection in the window. Not the medic, not the worker. The ghost had returned. The desert opened before them, endless, silent, waiting. In the distance, beyond the dark ridges, faint lights pulsed where the compound lay. A heartbeat in the night, a trap baited with memory. Leona's voice cut through the hum of the engine. 3 days to execution. We strike tomorrow at dawn." Mara nodded, no hesitation. But as the lights faded behind them, Hale watched her in silence, reading the weight in her eyes. She wasn't only going back for a seam, she was going back for ghosts. The team she'd buried, the promises she couldn't keep. And deep down, he knew. Some battles you survive, others you carry. They drove on into the darkness, the road a vein leading straight into the heart of everything she'd tried to escape. Somewhere ahead, a war waited, and in the quiet hum of the tires, Mara whispered to herself, "This time, no one gets left behind." The van disappeared into the black horizon, a moving shadow under a moon that watched in silence. And far away, across oceans and deserts, a signal blinked on a hidden screen. Target, Vesper. Location, confirmed. The desert stretched before them, endless, red, silent. By dawn, the convoy reached the edge of the old valley. The place smelled the same, dust, oil, and something faintly metallic, like dried blood and memory. Mara stepped out of the van first. The air was thin, sharp. Her boots sank into the sand where, 10 years ago, everything she'd been had died. Behind her, the team fanned out, scanning the horizon. Leona raised binoculars toward the ridge. "Movement," she murmured. 2 guards at the east post, rotating every 15 minutes. Jonas crouched beside the truck, assembling a drone. Thermals confirmed 35 inside. Heavy weapons, patrols, floodlights. He hesitated. They built this place like a shrine to death. Mara didn't flinch. This valley's always been a graveyard. They just added walls. The others exchanged glances. Even the hardened ones could feel it, the weight, the ghosts pressing from beneath the earth. Dax adjusted his pack. "This ground remembers." "So do I," Mara said. For a long moment, no one spoke. The wind whispered through the rocks, carrying echoes of gunfire long gone. Leona broke the silence. We stick to plan. Jonas jams comms, Nadia hits the ridge, Kieran covers the west wall. She looked at Mara. You go in once we draw their eyes. Mara nodded. We only get one chance. They moved to set up camp in a ravine shielded by jagged stone. From there, they could see the compound lights flicker faintly in the distance, like a heartbeat under fog. Jonas launched the drone, its hum fading as it climbed into the pale sky. The screen on his tablet flickered with live feed, towers, fences, sentries, the central yard where a platform stood waiting. Wood, chains, banners, an execution stage. Leona swore under her breath. They're not hiding it. Mara leaned closer to the feed and froze. A figure stood bound in the yard, head bowed, hands tied behind his back. Asim. Older now, taller, but she knew the shape of those shoulders. She'd once carried him through fire. Now he stood beneath the noose they'd built for her. Her hand clenched into a fist. The drone feed blurred as she fought the urge to look away. Leona placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll get him out. Mara's voice was a whisper. We don't fail this time. The team fell into silent work. Every motion practiced, every sound deliberate. Nadia planted charges along the ridge, buried under loose shale. Jonas tuned the signal jammer to the compound's frequency. Kieran found his nest in the rocks, rifle resting steady, scope glinting like an unblinking eye. Dax cleaned his instruments, knowing how easily blood would follow. Mara sat apart, assembling her gear, a pistol, a knife, a small transmitter. No insignia, no flag, just purpose. When the sun dipped low, painting the valley in gold and shadow, Hale arrived from a perimeter sweep. Interceptors in the North Pass, he reported. They're expecting someone. Mara looked up. They're expecting a ghost. Her eyes hardened. We'll give them one. Night settled. The team gathered around a low-burning lantern, faces half hidden in the glow. It felt like ritual, the calm before a storm that none could name but all could feel. Leona passed a flask around. No one drank much. The air was too heavy with the scent of unfinished stories. Kieran broke the silence. You ever think about what happens if we don't come back? Nadia smirked. Then we don't have to think about it again. Laughter flickered, brief, brittle, then faded. Mara looked at them all. Every face bore scars invisible to the world. People like her. People who'd given everything and asked for nothing. She said softly, Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you. No speeches, just truth. Leona met her eyes. We follow you because you walk toward fire, not away. Dax added, We follow because you're the only one who still believes we can save someone. Mara turned away before they could see the emotion crack her mask. Belief was fragile, but tonight it burned. Hours passed. The wind shifted. Far off, a generator hummed inside the compound, the machinery of execution. Jonas checked his watch. Comms jammer online in 2 hours. Window opens at 0400. Mara nodded. Once we breach, no noise. We move like ghosts. The plan replayed in her mind. Entry through the drainage tunnels, extraction via North Ridge, evac at pre-dawn. It was clean on paper, but war never stayed clean. She walked away from camp, climbed a ridge where the valley spread out beneath her. The stars hung low, silent witnesses. She closed her eyes and whispered the names of her old team, the ones who hadn't made it out. I'm going back, she said to the wind. This time we finish it. Footsteps behind her. Hale joined quietly, standing beside her. You don't have to do this alone. I do, she said, but I'm grateful I don't have to walk in alone. He studied her face in the starlight, the lines carved by years of silence, the fire still unextinguished. You think saving him will save you? No, she said, but it might let me breathe again. A faint rumble broke the stillness. Engines, distant but approaching. Headlights flared across the horizon. Jonas's voice came through her earpiece, urgent. Contact. Convoy inbound from the west. Unmarked trucks. Thermal shows at least 20 men. Leona cursed. They're sweeping the perimeter early. Mara snapped back into command. Kill the lights. Hide the vehicles. Everyone silent. They melted into the rocks, shadows among shadows. Engines roared closer, beams slicing across the ridges. For a breathless moment, one light swept directly over their camp, then moved on. The convoy turned toward the compound. Dozens of men disembarked, carrying crates and floodlights. Preparations for a spectacle. Mara's pulse hammered. Tomorrow would come faster than they could breathe. As the engines faded, she exhaled slowly. The storm had begun. She turned to her team, whispering, "At dawn, we move." The valley answered with silence, deep, ancient, waiting. And somewhere in the darkness, inside the compound walls, a boy lifted his head as if he'd heard her voice. The desert was still when they moved. A thin mist clung to the ground, the kind that swallowed sound. Above, the stars bled into dawn, cold, distant, unblinking. Mara led the way. Her silhouette ghosted through the valley floor, gear strapped tight, eyes locked forward. Every step took her closer to the place she'd promised never to return. Behind her, the team flowed like shadow. Leona, Kieran, Nadia, Jonas, Dax. No words, just the rhythm of boots and breath. The compound loomed ahead, barbed wire, floodlights, watchtowers rising from sand like jagged teeth, a fortress built from fear. Jonas whispered through comms, voice low and steady. Signal jammer active, external comms down, we're in blackout. Nadia, charges in place, ridge will blow on your mark. Kieran, overwatch ready, 2 guards northeast, 3 at the gate. Mara's reply was a whisper of steel. Execute on my signal. They reached the drainage culvert, rusted, half buried in sand. An old path, forgotten by most, but not by her. She knelt at the opening, gloved fingers brushing the cold metal. Memories flooded back, screams, fire, the smell of blood. She pushed them away. Now was not then. This time, no one dies. She slid inside first. The tunnel swallowed her whole. The air inside was stale, damp, echoing with the drip of unseen leaks. Nadia followed, then Dax, Leona last, sealing the hatch behind them. Darkness wrapped around them like a shroud. Jonas guided them from above, voice steady in their ears. Left fork ahead, 20 meters. You'll surface beneath the generator shed. Mara crawled forward, every sense tuned sharp. Her breath shallow, her heart a controlled metronome. At the grate, she paused, peering through rusted slats. A courtyard above. Crates. 2 guards smoking beside the fence. She waited until their backs turned. Then she moved. Silent. Precise. A shadow unfolding. She slipped from the tunnel, knife flashing once, clean, efficient. The guards fell soundless. Dax dragged the bodies aside. Leona took position near the gate. Jonas murmured, "You're clear. Proceed to inner wall." They advanced across open ground, sticking to cover, eyes scanning towers. Floodlights swept the yard, missing them by inches. Every second a coin toss with fate. At the inner fence, Nadia knelt, cutting the wire in practiced silence. They slipped through like smoke. Inside, the compound pulsed with low hum. Generators, radios, voices echoing from stone corridors. A banner hung over the central square, black cloth, white script, a symbol of the faction that had hunted her ghost for a decade. And beneath it, the stage, the rope, the boy. Asim stood bound at the center, head lifted now, eyes hard with defiance. Even from distance, Mara recognized the fire she'd once seen in him as a child, a spark that refused to die. Her chest tightened. She spoke into comms, voice low. Target confirmed. Moving in. Kieran's voice crackled back. You've got 15 guards in the yard, 2 near the platform, 3 patrolling east wall. Jonas added, Thermals show more inside the barracks. If they mobilize, you'll be pinned. Mara's tone was calm. We don't give them time. She signaled the team. They spread out, ghosts in shifting shadow. Nadia placed a charge beneath the generator fuel tank. Leona positioned smoke grenades along the wall. Dax prepared the extraction line. Mara moved toward the stage, each step silent, precise, inevitable. Then, a voice, sharp, commanding, from the loudspeaker above. Intruders! Floodlights exploded to life. The yard blazed white. Shouts, boots pounding. Alarms wailed like sirens in a nightmare. Jonas cursed in their ears. Tripwire sensors. Hidden grid. They know. Mara didn't hesitate. Go loud! Nadia hit the detonator. The ridge erupted in flame. Shockwaves rolled across the valley, shaking the ground. Chaos tore through the compound, guards scattering, shouting, confused. Mara sprinted through smoke, cutting through the haze like a blade. A guard appeared, rifle raised. She dropped him with 2 shots, never slowing. Leona covered the flank, rifle barking short bursts. Dax moved to intercept wounded, pulling them clear. Jonas jammed local frequencies, blocking reinforcements from calling command. Through the chaos, Mara reached the stage. Asim looked up, disbelief flickering into recognition. You, he whispered. She cut the ropes. We're going home. But before they could move, a voice echoed from the balcony above. Slow, familiar. Mara Quinn. She froze. Out of the smoke stepped a figure in desert fatigues, face scarred, eyes cold as steel. Commander Rashid Varan, the man who'd led the ambush 10 years ago. The man she thought she'd killed. Her breath caught. A ghost wearing flesh. Rashid smirked. You lived. Good. Now you can die twice. He raised his hand. Dozens of rifles leveled from the upper walkway. Too many. Too fast. Leona's voice cracked through comms. We're surrounded. Nadia. Charges spent. No exit on the west. Jonas. Reinforcements inbound. 10 minutes. Mara's mind raced. They were boxed in. Yard lit like daylight. Enemies in every direction. Rashid stepped closer. Voice like poison. You built your legend on corpses. Today, the world watches as your ghost finally fades. Mara glanced at Asim. He stood steady, jaw clenched, eyes fierce. She saw the child he'd been, the boy who once promised to rebuild, and knew she wouldn't let him fall here. Her hand slid to her belt, finding the remote detonator linked to Nadia's hidden failsafe. One last option. She whispered into comms, On my mark, smoke and retreat to tunnel. Protect the boy. Leona hissed, What about you? Just move when I say. She stepped forward, into the open, drawing every eye. Rashid's grin widened. There she is, the ghost. Mara met his gaze. No, she said softly. I'm the reckoning. Her thumb pressed the switch. Explosions tore through the east wall. Flames erupted, smoke swallowing the yard in seconds. Screams, gunfire. The compound became chaos incarnate. Through the choking haze, Leona grabbed Asim, dragging him toward the tunnel. Nadia covered their flank. Kieran's rifle cracked from above, dropping silhouettes in bursts of light. Mara stayed behind, moving like a phantom, cutting down anyone who came close. Each shot measured, each strike deliberate. But the flood was endless. Rashid's men closed in, shouting orders through the smoke. Jonas yelled, "Extraction point compromised! You need to fall back now!" Mara's voice was calm, anchored in storm. "Get them out!" Leona's protest was lost in the roar of collapsing walls. Mara turned toward the balcony where Rashid still stood, untouched, watching. Their eyes met through drifting fire, and as she raised her weapon, the world narrowed to the space between them. Hunter and hunted, ghost and betrayer. A shot rang out. Not hers. Pain exploded across her shoulder, spinning her backward into the smoke. Her weapon fell, her vision blurred. Rashid's voice echoed through the chaos. "Run, ghost. I'll find you again." Darkness closed in. Her last sight. Asim vanishing into the tunnel, carried by hands that refused to let him fall. The valley roared around her. Fire, smoke, and the echo of a war reborn. Smoke hung low over the valley like a shroud. The sky bled gray with dawn as flames devoured the compound behind them. Leona stumbled through the ravine, Asim leaning heavily on her shoulder, coughing through the haze. Nadia and Dax flanked them, eyes scanning the ridges, weapons raised. Jonas followed last, drone feed flickering with static. They'd made it out, but Mara hadn't. "Where is she?" Asim rasped, voice raw. Leona didn't answer. She didn't trust her voice not to break. They reached the tunnel mouth and dove inside as another explosion ripped through the valley, shaking the ground. Dust rained from the ceiling. The light behind them glowed orange, pulsing like a dying heart. Dax pressed a hand to Asim's shoulder. "We move now. We can't stay here." But Asim twisted away, eyes wild. "She came for me. We don't leave her." Leona caught his wrist, her grip iron. "She knew the risk," she said. "We honor it by surviving." He tried to pull free, but the strength left his body. He sank to his knees, trembling. Jonas checked his feet again, scanning thermal signatures. "Movement," he muttered. Multiple hostiles in the yard. But, wait, one signature still active near the east wall. Alone. Leona froze. "Her?" He zoomed in. The shape flickered through smoke, small, limping, steady. It was her. "She's alive," Nadia whispered. Leona's mind raced. The mission was to extract Asim, but leaving her there, it wasn't an option. "We go back," she said. Jonas shook his head. "You'll never make it. Reinforcements inbound. Drones picking up new convoys from the north." Leona turned to Dax. "Prep med evac at checkpoint Bravo. Jonas, guide us remotely. Nadia, with me." She looked at Asim. "You stay with Dax." "No," he said, fire in his eyes. "If she dies, everything she did means nothing." Leona saw it then. The same defiance Mara once carried. The same refusal to break. She exhaled. "Then move fast." They sprinted back through the tunnel. Weapons up, lungs burning with smoke. The valley roared like a furnace, the air thick with heat and ash. Every step closer, the memories grew sharper. The ambush, the screams, the ghosts she thought were buried. When they emerged into the open, the compound lay in ruins. Walls shattered, towers twisted, the stage collapsed into cinders. Bodies everywhere, friend, foe, ash. Nadia led with her rifle, covering corners. Leona scanned the wreckage. Then she saw movement.
a figure staggering through the haze, one arm pressed to a bleeding shoulder. "Mara!" Mara turned, face streaked with soot and blood, eyes hard but alive. She waved them back. "Don't!" A crack split the air. Gunfire from the north wall. Bullets tore through the dirt near their feet. They dove for cover behind a collapsed crate. "They're still here," Nadia hissed. Mara's breath came sharp, shallow. "Rashid, he's alive." Leona's eyes widened. "The commander? From Blackfall?" "He planned this. He wanted me to come." Another burst. Shrapnel sparked across the ground. They were pinned. Jonas's voice crackled in their earpieces. "Convoy 30 seconds out. Armored. You have to move now." Leona fired a burst toward the ridge, forcing the shooters back. "Mara, can you run?" Mara shook her head. "Not far." Nadia yanked a smoke grenade from her vest and threw it into the open. A cloud erupted, masking their retreat. "Move!" They half-dragged, half-carried Mara through the wreckage, stumbling over rubble and corpses. The compound faded behind them into a roaring inferno. By the time they reached the ravine, their lungs were on fire. Jonas guided them through side routes, avoiding patrols, weaving through canyons of scorched earth. Finally, they reached the safe house hidden beneath a rock shelf, a relic bunker from a forgotten war. Dax was waiting, med kit ready. He lowered Mara onto a cot, hands already working. "Through and through," he muttered, cutting away fabric. "Missed the artery. You're lucky." She gritted her teeth, silent as he stitched. Leona stood watch at the doorway, rifle trained on the horizon. Asim hovered beside her, eyes locked on Mara. "You saved me," he said. She met his gaze, and for the first time since the valley, her expression softened. "I made you a promise," she said quietly, "and I keep my promises." Silence settled over them, broken only by Dax's steady movements. When he finished, Mara sat up slowly, wincing. "We can't stay here," she said. "They'll hunt us." Leona turned. "We'll move when you can walk." But Mara shook her head. "They want me, not you. If I stay, you get him out." "No," Leona snapped. "We came as a team. We leave as one." Mara looked at Asim. He was older now, but the boy in her memory still shone behind his eyes. "You built something they fear," she said. "That's why they took you." He nodded. "And they'll keep coming." "Then we go to them first." Leona frowned. "You're in no shape to fight." "I don't need to fight," Mara said. "I need to finish what we started 10 years ago." Jonas entered, face pale. "Intel update. Rashid's transmitting live. He's calling the attack a victory. Says the ghost was destroyed, the symbol erased." He turned the tablet. A video played. Rashid standing amid flames, declaring her death to the world. Her name crossed off, her story buried again. Mara watched in silence, then whispered, "Let them believe." Leona realized the truth. This was their chance. If the world thought Vesper was gone, she could move unseen again. A ghost once more. But Mara's eyes burned with something new. Not vengeance. Purpose. "Rashid's alive," she said, "and he's not finished." She looked to Asim. "Neither are we." The team exchanged glances. The mission had changed. It wasn't just rescue anymore. It was justice. Outside, thunder rolled across the desert, echoing through stone. Dax secured the supplies. Leona reloaded. Jonas reprogrammed the drone. They all felt it. The shift. The war they'd buried was rising again. Mara stood, steady despite the bandage around her shoulder. Her voice was calm, sure. "We move at night. North Ridge. We find his base, cut his network. End this for good." Leona nodded once. "Then we finish what they started."
Asim looked from face to face, the team that had risked everything for him. He whispered, "What if it never ends?" Mara's answer was quiet, but unbreakable. "Then we keep walking." She turned toward the valley, smoke still rising in the distance. Ash drifted through the air like snow, settling on her shoulders, the weight of old ghosts, the promise of new fire. In the silence that followed, a faint sound carried on the wind, the echo of distant engines. Rashid's hunt had already begun. Night fell hard across the desert. The stars burned cold and sharp, scattered like glass over black sand. The safe house crouched in the rocks, a hollow carved by time and forgotten wars. Inside, silence pulsed like a second heartbeat. The team gathered around a flickering lantern, faces half lit, half shadow. They were alive, barely, but the fight wasn't finished. Jonas tapped the tablet on the table, the glow painting his face pale. "I've cracked their network," he whispered. "Rashid's using an old comms array 20 miles north, remote canyon, secure, hidden." He hesitated. "But there's more." Mara leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What?" Jonas zoomed in on the satellite feed, a compound twice the size of the one they'd just destroyed. Rows of vehicles, antennas, banners fluttering in the wind, and cages. Leona's breath caught. "Prisoners?" Jonas nodded grimly. "Locals, teachers, aid workers. He's building a broadcast. Wants the world to see him burn everything Vesper ever touched." Mara's jaw tightened. "This isn't about revenge," she said quietly. "It's about erasing hope." The words hung heavy. They all understood. Rashid wasn't hunting her. He was dismantling her legacy. Dax crossed his arms. "You're bleeding again." Mara pressed a hand to her shoulder. The wound throbbed under the bandage, but she didn't flinch. "I've had worse." Leona studied her, brow furrowed. "He's baiting you. He wants a final fight." Mara's gaze didn't waver. "Then he'll get one." A gust of wind rattled the door, carrying the scent of ash and oil. The desert whispered beyond the walls, an ancient sound, older than war. Asim sat apart from the others, staring at the fire. He spoke without looking up. "He told me something while I was captive." The room stilled. "What did he say?" Mara asked. Asim's voice was low, trembling with memory. "He said ghosts can't change the world. Only the living can. He said you should have stayed dead." Mara didn't speak. She stared into the shadows, hearing echoes from another lifetime, the valley, the team, the mission that ended everything. Ghosts can't change the world. Maybe that was true, but she wasn't a ghost anymore. She rose slowly, steady despite the pain. "We go at dawn." Jonas frowned. "We don't have enough ammo, no backup, no med-evac." "We have purpose," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried iron. The team exchanged glances. They'd followed her into hell once already. Now they would again. Leona stood. "Then we plan it right. No mistakes." She cleared the table, spreading the map flat. They circled around like pilgrims before an altar. Jonas pointed to the canyon. "One entry here, narrow pass. Patrols on rotation every 20 minutes. Nadia traced a route along the ridgeline. We approach from the south under cover of wind. Set charges on the outer wall. Dax marked a fallback route through the ravine. Evac point here, 2 clicks west." Leona's finger tapped the center. "Rashid's control tower. That's where we finish this." Mara listened, absorbing every detail. Then she spoke, voice calm. "We free the captives, take down the broadcast, end Rashid." Simple,
final. But plans were only bones. War filled in the flesh. The night deepened. They prepared in silence, loading magazines, cleaning weapons, sealing wounds, each motion a prayer. Asim approached Mara, hesitation in his steps. "You shouldn't have come back for me." She looked at him, expression unreadable. "I didn't come back for you," she said softly. "I came back for what you stand for." He frowned. "And what's that?" "Light," she said. "The one thing they can't kill." For the first time, he understood. She wasn't just fighting Rashid. She was fighting the silence that swallowed heroes. Outside, a coyote cried across the plain, a lonely sound, cut short by the wind. Mara moved to the doorway, staring into the dark. The horizon glowed faintly where the canyon lights burned, a wound in the earth. Leona joined her. "You ready?" Mara nodded. "I was born for endings." The wind shifted. In its current, a faint metallic scent. Oil, gunmetal, distant fire. Jonas's drone buzzed overhead, sending back a live feed. He cursed softly. "Movement. Convoy heading our direction." Leona's head snapped up. "How far?" "Less than 2 miles. Scouting unit. They're sweeping for survivors." Nadia checked her rifle. "We fight or we run." Mara's mind clicked through possibilities. If they fought, Rashid would know she'd lived. If they ran, they'd lose their element of surprise. She made her choice. "We disappear." They doused the lantern. Shadows swallowed the room. In silence, they gathered their gear and slipped into the ravine, moving like wraiths through stone. The convoy passed minutes later, engines growling, searchlights sweeping the canyon walls. Voices barked orders in a language they all knew too well. The beams washed over empty rock, never touching the figures hidden in shadow. When the sound faded, they exhaled as one. Jonas whispered, "They'll report no survivors." Mara nodded. "Good." They climbed higher into the ridge, moving under the cover of stars. Above them, the canyon's outline took shape, jagged, monstrous, alive with faint light. The fortress waited. At the crest, they stopped. Below, Rashid's new compound glimmered like a scar of fire against the black desert. Spotlights swept over steel and stone, guards pacing in rhythmic lines. And beyond the walls, cages, rows of them. Even from this distance, they could hear faint cries carried on the wind. Leona whispered, "He's building a spectacle." Mara's face hardened. "Then we end it before the curtain rises." She knelt, studying the ground, marking entry points with small stones. Every motion deliberate, every breath steady. Her wound throbbed, but she ignored it. Pain was a language she understood. Asim crouched beside her. "What if we fail?" Mara's eyes stayed on the lights below. "Then we fail trying to save, not trying to hide." The others gathered around, silent, watching her. In her stillness, they saw the leader she'd once been, and the one she'd become. Not a ghost, not a soldier, a promise made flesh. She rose, the desert wind lifting strands of her hair. "Tomorrow," she said, "we go down into the canyon." The team nodded. No fear left now, only resolve. Behind them, the safe house lay empty, another shadow in a land full of ghosts. Ahead, the canyon burned like a waiting pyre. Mara turned away from the stars, eyes fixed on the darkness below. Each heartbeat matched the rhythm of a war she couldn't outrun. And somewhere deep in the fortress, Rashid looked to the ridges, sensing what the wind carried, a storm coming for him. The canyon lay below, veined with smoke and light, its walls painted blood red by the rising sun. Mara crouched at the ridge,
watching the fortress breathe. Generators rumbled, guards rotated. Somewhere inside, prisoners waited for a spectacle. Leona checked her watch. Wind's shifting. Perfect cover. Nadia tightened her harness, eyes cold. Once we blow the gates, no turning back. Jonas adjusted his earpiece. Comms ready. Drones on standby. Dax knelt beside Mara, sliding a morphine injector into her hand. For the pain. She pocketed it. If I use that, it's already over. Asim stood a few paces away, staring down at the cages. They were teachers, he whispered. They believed knowledge could save us. Mara touched his shoulder. It still can, if we live. The team moved as one, descending into the canyon shadows. The ground shifted beneath their boots. Soft dust, scattered bones from forgotten wars. Every sound echoed too loud. Every heartbeat counted. At the outer wall, they split. Nadia crawled along the ridge, planting charges. Leona and Kieran took overwatch. Rifles trained. Jonas stayed back, eyes locked on the feed. Mara and Asim slipped toward the access gate, low and silent. Through the bars, they saw the captives, faces hollow, eyes wide. Among them, a woman whispered prayers into the morning wind. Mara felt something twist in her chest. The same fear, the same faith. A crackle in the comms. Jonas. Guards moving east. Windows open. 30 seconds. Mara whispered, Go. They slid through the breach, staying in shadow. Nadia's voice came next. Charges set. Leona. Overwatch ready. Mara's breath steadied. On my mark. The second hand on Leona's watch ticked once, twice. Now! The canyon exploded in fire. The blast ripped through the outer gate, throwing dust and debris into the air. Sirens wailed, guards shouted, chaos bloomed. The team surged forward. Leona's rifle barked. Nadia cut through smoke. Jonas jammed transmissions, flooding Rashid's network with static. Mara and Asim reached the cages. Bolt cutters bit through steel. Hands reached for her, trembling, desperate. She pulled them free one by one, voice calm, eyes scanning. Stay low. Follow the wall. Don't run till I say. A shout from above. Rashid stood on the tower, coat flapping in the wind, eyes locked on her. He raised a loudspeaker. Look, world! The ghost returns to die! The cameras turned toward her, mounted on poles, flashing red lights. A live feed, every second broadcast. Mara looked up at him, unflinching. End this, she whispered to Jonas. He hit the key. Static flooded the signal. The broadcast cut to black. Rashid's smile vanished. He barked orders. Men poured from the barracks, rifles ready. Mara shoved Asim toward the captives. Get them out! He hesitated. What about you? Go! Her tone left no room for argument. Leona's voice cracked over comms. More hostiles, north wall! Kieran's rifle answered, precise, deadly. Nadia triggered the next blast, collapsing a tower into the courtyard. Mara moved through smoke, pistol steady, each shot deliberate. She wasn't the ghost they feared. She was the reckoning they'd earned. Bullets chewed the ground at her feet. She dove behind cover, lungs burning, shoulders screaming. Through the haze, Rashid descended the stairs, rifle slung, dagger gleaming at his belt. Mara Quinn, he called. Vesper, savior, killer. He stepped into the light. I should thank you. Without your legend, I'd have no empire to destroy. She rose, weapon aimed. You built it on the bones of the innocent. Same as you. His eyes burned with old hatred. You left us in that valley to die. You think you carry ghosts? I am one. For a heartbeat,
Silence. The weight of shared history between them. Betrayal, blood, survival twisted into rage. Mara lowered her pistol. You were my ally once. Until you chose them over me, he spat. He drew the dagger, stepping closer. Now the world will watch its savior fall. She didn't move. Not this time. Behind him, Leona's shot cracked. The bullet struck his rifle, spinning it from his hands. He turned, too slow. Mara lunged. They collided in the dust, blade flashing, fists striking bone. Every move born of memory, mirrored from battles long past. Rashid's dagger grazed her side. Pain flared white, but she didn't stop. She twisted his wrist, drove her knee into his chest, wrenched the blade free. He snarled, swinging wildly. She ducked, slammed the hilt into his temple. He staggered back, bleeding, gasping. You should have died with them, he rasped. I did, she said. Then she drove the dagger into the ground beside his head. The fight drained from him. He collapsed to his knees, breath ragged. She stood over him, weapon raised, and stopped. Killing him would end one man. Letting him live would expose his crimes to all. Your war's over, she said. You'll answer to the people you tried to silence. He laughed weakly. There's always another war. Not today. Leona and Nadia arrived, covering him as Dax rushed in to tend the wounded. Jonas signaled from the ridge. Convoys ready. Locals secured. Mara looked to the cages, empty now, doors swinging open. Asim stood among the freed, eyes shining with gratitude and grief. He nodded once. They'd done it. Not clean, not easy, but done. Helicopters thundered overhead. Allied aircraft, summoned by the signal Jonas finally released. Dust swirled around them as the team led the captives out, Rashid bound and silent. Mara climbed aboard last. She looked back once, at the canyon burning behind them, the ghosts finally quiet. Leona sat beside her, voice low. You could have killed him. I've killed enough. The aircraft rose, lifting them above the wreckage, the desert stretching endless below. Mara pressed a hand to her bandaged side, eyes on the horizon. Asim leaned forward. What happens now? Mara's gaze stayed distant. Now, we rebuild. Silence settled. Not the heavy silence of loss, but the fragile kind that comes before healing. The sun climbed higher, gilding the earth in light. Somewhere far below, the last flames died, leaving only ash. Mara closed her eyes. For the first time in years, the ghosts did not whisper, but purpose did. She turned to Leona. There'll be others like him. Leona nodded. Then we keep moving. The helicopter banked toward the horizon, disappearing into the glare of morning. And as the desert fell away, the world began to remember a truth long buried. That quiet strength endures, that legends can be reborn, and that sometimes the greatest warriors are the ones who choose to heal. The ghost was gone. But the light remained.